Okay. Let's see. Let's go live. Let's go live somewhere. Let's go live on Facebook, okay? All right. We're going to be talking about, what are we talking about today? We are talking about, the perks of being a spiritual life coach. Boom, copy, paste, and I have it open. And let's see, here's a link to the blog. Here we go. Join the live stream or read the blog. Okay. I copied the title, but not the link. Okay, that is so silly. Hello, let's try this. Now we got it. Okay, here we go. Boom. There we go. Share it on my timeline. Boom. Go live. All right. Now, while that's happening, I could be putting on some earrings, but I guess I'm just gonna not. Okay. Let's see. All right. Great. I think I'm live now. Hi, everybody. It's Crystal Lynn, and I'm gonna be really quick today. When I say quick, that means it goes from being like a 2-hour live stream to being hopefully less than an hour. I'm sure it'll be shorter. Look, I am going to be talking today about the perks of being a spiritual life coach and healer. And I wrote a blog about it, and you can find that on my website. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I have there, but more than anything, I'll probably speak on my heart, because this thing that's really important to me that goes along with being a life coach is so much bigger than what I have to write about. So I'm I'm actually going to not talk about it. I mean, I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not going to write about it. So I am really excited because I've got just 5 quick little things that I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to dive into that thing that I just couldn't write about, okay? So the number one perk of being a spiritual life coach is that you get to live what you teach. Now, I personally I became a life coach because I wanted to help other people thrive. But really what I wanted to do was to help myself thrive. I'm going to be really honest with you. I was looking at all these people, and every time I'd see someone with an issue, I'd be like, I have that issue. How would I work on that issue with myself? And so I would find myself doing all this work to kind of improve my world. And my clients, I was doing massage, so these clients would come in and they would talk about their problems, and then I would kind of turn things around and really look at myself and say, well, why do I do that? As if, I was living vicariously through them, but they kept showing me myself, which of course shows us that we are all very, very connected. So what I decided, what I learned in that moment is that you actually do live what it is you teach. So when I became a life coach and I set up my coaching business, I set up my coaching business based on 3 really important principles that I used in my personal life. And the number one principle was shadow work and the importance of doing shadow work. Now, if you don't know what shadow work is when you take an intellectual approach to your subconscious beliefs and your emotions. So you go into a place, right? Your subconscious mind is a jungle of wild, crazy energy, okay? And you use your conscious mind to go into that space, and you try to bring out something that has value. So that is what shadow work is. It's when you consciously go in and you're going to deal with the things that you find in your subconscious mind that are bothering you. So for example, limiting beliefs, fears, for example, the fear of failure, the fear of self-sabotage, okay, procrastination. Those are all negative concepts and things that we do, things that we have that stop us from thriving in our lives. Well, when we do shadow work, we're going in with a conscious awareness that we've got an issue, and we're going into the subconscious mind to deal with that issue, okay? So that is partially what shadow work is. Another concept that I used in my coaching business was healing. Now, for me, healing is when I, as a life coach and healer, it's when I'm doing more myself and my client is doing less. So when I'm doing shadow work with my client is doing 99% of the work. All I'm doing is guiding my client and giving them, prompts, things to think about. I'm giving them some information that they might need that's helpful in the moment as they are working with their subconscious mind. I'm asking them questions. I'm having them pause. I'm reminding them to feel and all these kinds of things. It's a very active session for the client. Shadow work is very active. Whereas healing, my client goes rather passive. They are doing more listening and feeling, or they're just meditating, or they're just having an experience and resting and relaxing. So for example, if I'm doing Reiki, I am doing more work, even though when I do Reiki, I'm just channeling, but I'm holding space and my client is very, very passive. So that would be maybe a difference to help you understand shadow work versus healing, okay? So with healing, the client is more relaxed, more passive, and with something like shadow work, they're very much involved, they're very active, they are doing most of the work. Okay, and then the third principle that I use in my business is light work, and that is when my my client and I get them to start thinking about their future and what it is they want to create. Because as we're doing all this shadow work and we're doing this healing work, they're having all these kinds of new breakthroughs and they have these new mindsets that are wanting to be born, but they have to create. So just because you heal a shadow doesn't mean that you get to go back to doing things the same way that you've always done them, right? So when you're doing this kind of deep healing work, you're actually you have a responsibility, and this responsibility is to go forward in your life and to create new things, to create new relationships, and to even rethink the relationships you're in. Because if you've been showing up, if you're in a narcissistic relationship and you've been showing up as the victim of the narcissist, well, now that you've had that healing, you might need to call that narcissist out on that behavior and maybe you're going to do something different with that relationship. We see this all the time as coaches, all the time, right? So living what you teach is a really big benefit of being a spiritual life coach, because every morning I get up and in my bed, I sit there every morning for about an hour and a half, and I do shadow work, healing, and light work just on myself. And the more I do it on myself, the more I am able to hold my clients accountable to those same very important principles. All right. So I'm going to just take a really quick pause right there. I want to say hello to my friend Monica, who has hopped on the call. Hi, Monica. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining me here. Monica's also a life coach, and so it's really nice to have her joining in. So I'm going to just go on back here and get through this, and then we can open up the discussion. But I just want to finish up the blog and talking to you about those principles that I want to share. You know, the most important thing ultimately to me, like I said, I didn't write about. So obviously, as a life coach, you get to really help people in meaningful ways. And one of the things that I've noticed that brand new coaches don't quite understand is the intimacy that goes along with being a life coach. And it's funny because I'll see people who are like, oh yeah, I want to be a life coach. And they come in and they're really sweet. You know, they're like, oh yeah, I really want to be a life coach. I want to help a person find peace. And, you know, I want to help them find abundance. And I want to help them make, you know, get over their relationships. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's really good. And do you know how you have to do that? And they're like, yeah, I'm going to give them all this really good advice because I've gone through all these things and I'm going to help them. And then we start getting into the work, and then they start looking very deeply at what people go through. And to me, what every single person that I know, there are very few exceptions to this, but the depth of suffering that people have gone through, especially as children, the things that we adults have witnessed as children. Like, I always thought that the Brady Bunch was real for everybody else except for me, because I was seeing things very differently than Jan, Marcia, Cindy, Bobby, Peter, and Greg. Like, my world was so very different than theirs. The amount of violence that I saw, the amount of just sick shit that I saw as a child is, for me as an adult, I'm like, shame on y'all. Shame on y'all. But then I can't really say shame on y'all because they were people just being people, just doing the best that they could, you know? But, you know, when we understand as life coaches that the adults we see are formed by those experiences in childhood, you know, we realize that this is not a job that's about giving people advice, because that's not what we do. You don't give advice to a child of incest, a child who has lost their parents. You don't give them advice. There's no way anybody who has gone through that needs you to give them advice. What they need is someone who has, number one, compassion, and number two, maybe some empathy. So if you've gone through some things and you can relate to that person, that would help them a lot more than just some random advice or somebody saying, oh yes, I'm going to help people by giving them advice. No. So the best perk, in my opinion, of being a life coach is the amount of depth that we get to experience with people and the amount of intimacy. Because me, I have gone through some things. And so when I get the opportunity to actually meet other people who have gone through things, and maybe I'm up here on the path and of healing and having transformed those dark things, and maybe they're back here on the path, that I get to help them is extremely rewarding, that I get to understand them, that I can see them. And that's kind of one of the best compliments that I've gotten from my students is they say to me, I feel seen. I feel like you see me. I feel like you get me. Like, because I do. I've been there and I understand what you're going through. And that is extremely rewarding for me as a life coach. And clearly, in this session, I'm talking about what I get out of being a life coach. These are the perks of being a life coach, okay? These are the things you get to receive by being a life coach, and it feels really good. It feels really good. So you get to help people in meaningful ways. Another thing is that the more I read, the more I get to help people. And so it's in my interest to read more books, to learn more, to learn, right? I love reading, love it, love getting knowledge from books. But the thing that I love most of all, I love learning from stories and from movies and from the very excellent television that you can get on Netflix. And I will have my students watch movies or watch an entire series of a television show because that television show, the characters are illustrating the coaching principles that I am teaching them. And my favorite example, it still is my favorite example out of all, but there's a television show called Being Erica. I don't know if you've ever heard of Being Erica. It's a Canadian television show, and I think it launched back in 2000. It had to have been like 2008, 2009, something like that. And it was on only for 4 years. But the premise of this show is there's a young woman, she's young, she's very beautiful, but let's face it, she's a fuck up. She's in her 20s. And the first episode, like, she's such a fuck up, it's almost hard to watch, okay? Because she not only, she loses her job, she loses her boyfriend, like, and she's just kind of like a walking mess, okay? And what happens is in that first episode, she's a mess and she's having just a rotten day, and she goes into Starbucks, or not to Starbucks, she goes into a local coffee shop. The guy has some samples and he says, and I remember because I rewatched this a few times to see, he says to her, hey, do you want to try this new latte? And she says, sure. And so she downs the latte and then she goes into anaphylactic shock. She starts choking, she can't breathe, she's having an allergic reaction. And she's going, what's in the drink? What's in the drink? What's in the drink? She can't breathe. She's shutting down. Okay. He says, it's hazelnut. I said it's a hazelnut latte. And she's like, holy shit. And so basically, she has a near-death experience. And when she wakes up, she's in the hospital. Okay. Now, I had to rewatch that because I'm like, did he say that was a hazelnut latte or did he say that was a latte? And when I replayed it, he said it was a latte. So they were kind of fucking with us and they were doing it. It's just such a good show. It's such a good show. So anyway, so Erica, the girl, finds herself in the hospital and her family's there. They're worried about her and they take her back home. So now she's at home with her family in her old bedroom. And she's just come back from a near-death experience. And her mom and dad thought it was a good idea, and her sister thought it was a really good idea to do an intervention for her at that moment. So she goes in. Oh, I'm getting teary-eyed because I'm remembering this. It was such the wrong thing to do to a person. Like, you've just gone through hell, and now people are going to give you advice. Okay. People are going to sit you down and give you advice. So she's sitting at this table, and her sister and her sister's husband are really successful. Her mom and dad have a successful marriage, and her best friend is, like becoming a lawyer and really got her shit together. And then there's Erica, right? And so Erica is sitting there and she's looking at all these people, and they're all kind of like, okay, what's wrong with Erica? And Erica is like, fuck this, I'm out. So she gets out. She walks out the door in her pajamas, and now she's walking down the street in her pajamas. Oh, and I forgot to say that while she was in the hospital, the hospital psychologist comes in and says, hey, I'm just here. I want to give you my card. If you ever need somebody to talk to, just come in, come talk to me, right? So she's like, thanks. And then boom. So anyway, she's left the family's house, and she's just walking down the street, and she's in tears. And she reaches her in her pocket, and she pulls out that guy's card, and she's like, I'm getting ready to go over here and talk to this dude. And so she goes to talk to the dude, and she sees this beautiful office, and she goes in, and the guy is like, his name is Coach Tom. He's like, Dr. Tom, because he's supposed to be a psychiatrist, right? So Dr. Tom says to Erica, write down all your regrets. And so Erica, first, Dr. Tom is like, I want to help you. And she's like, yeah, but I don't have any money. I just lost my job. What am I going to do? And so Dr. Tom says, okay, I didn't even ask you for any money. Why are you talking about money? Like, what's wrong with you, girl? We ain't even going there. Write down your regrets. So she writes down her regrets. Dr. Tom and her talk a little bit, and then he says, okay, what's this first regret about? And she starts talking about her regret. And the next thing she knows, she has traveled back in time to the day of that thing that she regretted. So this is what the television show is about. There are 12 episodes for each season. So she goes back and she does each of the 12 regrets. And basically, this show is about Dr. Tom, who's not really a doctor. He's like a spiritual life coach. That's what Dr. Tom is. Dr. Tom is a spiritual life coach, and he has magical powers. He shows up wherever Erica is, whenever she is having trouble and she's at a growth point. And anyway, it's a good show. I totally 100% recommend it. So that's why I started telling you this. That's why I started telling you this. There was a reason why I started telling you this story. It's because as a life coach, you need to be able to illustrate different things for your clients. Well, Erica and that whole television show did a fantastic job of illustrating like all the different things we go through, like the magic of being a spiritual life coach. Okay, that is very much illustrated, but also that television show, Erica had to deal with loss. She had to deal with not having enough money. She had to deal with starting her own business. She had to deal with choices that she made in her past that she thinks are affecting her now. And this series deals with fate and with, the magic of life, energy, and the different dimensions and possibilities. It's a wonderful show. I totally recommend it. And I do recommend it for all of my students, and it really, really, really inspires them. So that's another perk of being a life coach, is that you get to take all these tools that inspire you and pass them on to other people. And that feels really, really, really good. All right, let me just pause again, breathe, check in. Monica, how are you doing? Thank you so much for hanging in. You
Oh
okay?
my goodness, I'm loving it. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for this. It's great.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks, darling. All right, let me hurry up and get through these, and then you and I are going to chat ourselves. Okay, so hold on. The next thing is that you get to create your work format. And this is really important for me. This is where I was saying I didn't want to write about this too deeply. And I know Monica can attest to this as well. But one of the things that we get to do as life coaches is do whatever the fuck we want. And because we're not regulated like the psychiatry board or the board of psychiatric medicine regulates psychiatrists, psychologists are also regulated, social workers are also regulated. All these people that help others are heavily regulated so that the city, the state can protect the its citizens, okay? And thank goodness there are regulations, because if you are an unethical doctor or a psychiatrist, we would want to have some power to be able to revoke your license if you did something wrong. Well, as a coach, you don't have anybody that can take away your license. You don't have a license. You can have a certification, but you don't need a certification in order to practice. So there's a lot of freedom for us. Now, our job is to create for ourselves and for our business our own code of ethics and our own way of dealing with our clients, okay? For me, I have, and I'm not going to go into exactly how I set up my thing, my structure, just because I'm not sure that that's important for today. The thing to understand, though, is that you are responsible for setting that up. So how you set that up is entirely up to you. And that is a tremendous amount of power. And I suggest that you take that very seriously and think about it very deeply, because there isn't anybody regulating you and you are free and you can do whatever the fuck you want. And for me, there's a lot of responsibility that went along with that. So when I set up my business, there is the International Coaching Federation, but they have no power over me. But that doesn't mean they don't have power, and it doesn't mean that they don't have something to offer me. So what I did was, I don't want to be an ICF coach, but I sure did go and get all of their materials and make sure that I set myself up in a way that actually harmonizes with them and harmonizes with their own ethics and their own principles, because I wanted to do that for myself. I don't want anybody telling me to do it. I do that because I want to do it. And I don't want anybody telling me that, oh, you should never tell your clients that you love them. Well, I told my client yesterday, she says, I love you. And I said, I love you too. It was real. It was authentic. What the fuck am I going to do? Don't want nobody telling me I can't have those moments with my clients. Okay. So freedom is really, really important for me, but it's also something that just goes along with being a spiritual life coach. Now, you all know that I have a certification program, and a lot of times people will ask me, well, is your certification program accredited? And I'm thinking, yeah, it's accredited by God. And I created this and we have great results. So that's where we get our accreditation. And my other answer to that is no, because there isn't anyone that I'm willing to invite in to tell me how I should be doing things. My program is based on getting results for my clients and for my students who are becoming spiritual life coaches. I am interested in getting them the results that they and I agree on. I have it all written out, what I'm going to be offering them, and they get to make the decision about whether they want that. If they don't want that thing, they can move on to a different coaching program. So in my perspective and from what I've learned, people have discernment. I already know that I am ethical and I have integrity. And so when people are working with me, there's a lot of integrity. When people come through my certification program to become life coaches, okay, so look, I know that I'm saying God has all the power, and I'm saying that you as a life coach, you have all the power. But when you come through my certification program, I have a little bit more power because it's my brand and it's my program. Okay. So look, I'm not dogmatic, but there is something about having standards. And I do have standards. And for me, my standards are high for a reason. In my opinion, a spiritual life coach needs to be a badass spiritually, emotionally, and materially. If you are not a badass on those three levels, then you cannot be a badass butterfly spiritual life coach. You can't be a life coach that is certified by me. Can you be a life coach that's certified by somebody else? Yes. And can you be strong and great under somebody else? Yes. But if I am going to be the one who is initiating you into life coaching, you're going to get initiated under my standards. And if you aren't meeting my standards, then you're not going to get initiated by me. That's all there is to it. And do I have standards that are higher or more and I've seen a lot of life coaches. I've seen a lot of life coaching programs, and I'm not bashing them at all because I see a lot of people having successful, joyful lives and doing really great things. And I celebrate that. And at the same time, I have some standards. My standards are a deep understanding of your pain point and your topic. There's none of this general, broad stuff in my program. My program is about like getting really, really clear about what problems you are here to solve. You aren't here to solve all problems and serving everybody. I just heard somebody, they're just like, Crystalline, but I want to help everybody, and I can help them in all these ways. Like, no, you can't. No, you can touch them in a surface way in many different ways. But if you want to get to the core, and this goes back to what I was just saying a few moments ago, taking a deep dive with a person, getting really, really intimate. Okay. You're not going to, your course of understanding and your depth of understanding when you're working with women and women of rape is very different than if you're dealing with men who, who were athletes and didn't have to deal with such and such, these kinds of issues of opposition, or what's the word, these different challenges and obstacles. Okay. I'm just saying that being general and broad is not nearly as powerful as being deep and connected to your thing. Okay, so my issue is unworthiness, dealing with women who are dealing with unworthiness. There's Lisa A. Romano. She deals with narcissism. Lisa's relationship with narcissism is absolutely profound. She has studied it. She has coached people through it. She's created programs for it. She's written books about it. Okay. When you're wanting to deal with narcissism, or you're dealing with narcissism, or you're the child of a narcissist, and you find yourself in these abusive relationships, and you're dealing with alcoholism, and all these things are coming in, and it's all rooted around narcissism, Lisa's going to be a better choice than somebody who's like, oh, I help everybody do all things. Okay. Because Lisa has studied her thing and she knows it like nobody else knows it. And for me, it's the same thing around unworthiness. I've done work on that for years. That is my forte. And so you're more qualified, you're a better qualified coach when you make a commitment to an area of pain, and you dive deep in that area and you build your foundation on that. So you write your blogs about it, you make your videos about it, and you educate your tribe about it, and you call in your people about those things, and you educate them around that. And you build your clientele on that thing, not on trying to help everybody do everything. That's like saying to a tree, oh, tree, we want you to grow, to be 60 feet tall, but your roots can only go this deep because, that's better. It's better that you have 1,000,000 roots that go this deep as opposed to having 6 roots that go down, 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 down. Okay. Same exact concept for us. Just one pain point, maybe with a few little sub pain points, 2 or 3. We study that, we make that our base, and then that makes you an authority and an expert in that one area. Okay, your field of expertise. All right. Okay. Last thing on my blog is that serving others is your divine life purpose. Okay. It's really, that is a blessing. That is probably the best, that serving others is your divine life purpose. You are probably called to this work based on your soul. If we were to look at your astrology chart right now, we would probably see that all over your astrology report is you like the metaphysical, you are very spiritual, you're probably a spiritual leader, you have probably Neptune in the 10th house, you have something in the 12th house where you deal with the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, you probably have something in the 8th house or something in Scorpio, because you are just very, very much into spirituality and you feel it in your heart. I want to help people. It's a feeling, it's a compulsion. All right. Some people have compulsions toward medicine, or some people have compulsions toward art and creating art. Some of us have compulsions toward helping people and using spirit to do it. All right. And that is really the kind of essence of being a spiritual life coach. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about is that thing that I didn't want to write about because it's just too big for me to be writing about right now, and that is freedom. One of the benefits, the number one benefit of being a spiritual life coach is the fact that we are so free. We are free to set up our days the way we want to. We are free to make as much money as we want to, or as little money as our spirits will allow. We can do this work from anywhere in the world. I can do this work. I got it. My dog is sitting on the bed. My dog is sitting on the bed right here, and he is not stopping me from doing my work. Freedom. I chose to take my dog on a 3-hour walk today. In the middle of the day, 3-hour walk. I chose to get up this morning and meditate and do my own shadow work for an hour and a half. I chose to do exercise for an hour and a half. So freedom is who we are and what we do as spiritual life coaches. Of course, along with freedom comes responsibility. So I have a responsibility to make sure that I can take care of my life, that I can show up for my clients, and that I am giving my clients my all. That's what affords me the freedom. My commitment to my responsibility actually is what affords me the freedom. I guess I hadn't put those together before, but now I got it. So freedom, the price of freedom is responsibility. And if you handle your responsibilities, the more freedom you have. But the conundrum is that a lot of people see responsibility as a lack of freedom. Like, oh, that's a lot of responsibility to create a program and to take on women who were raped. That's a lot of responsibility. Yeah, it is. But because it's coming from your soul, right? This work is coming from your soul. The responsibility and doing the work that you need to do in order to create the thing that you want, which is to be a badass butterfly spiritual life coach, it's totally worth it. It's kind of like saying, oh, I want to be lean, but I don't want to do the work to get lean. I don't want to have to pump no iron. Don't ask me to walk, more than a block. I just want to be lean and I'm just going to go get plastic surgery. All right, there is that path. Okay, fine. But the way I do it is just a little bit more authentic and natural to me. And it is thinking about what I want to create for people, taking on the responsibility of creating that thing, even if it takes me years, even if it takes a lot of focus, even if it's challenging emotionally, even if it's challenging intellectually, it's really, really worth it. And it allows me to have the freedom to do and be who I am, where I want to be it. All right, awesome. Monica, thank you so much for hanging in here. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's lovely.
Yeah. So how are you? So Monica, you're a spiritual life coach. Tell me again, you're a women's empowerment coach. Is that what you call yourself?
Yes. I started out as a parenting coach. I actually got certificate as a parenting coach,
Yeah.
certified. It was a very intense program and I just fell in love with it.
Yeah.
That was actually my calling when I first saw there's a thing called parent coach, because I've seen a lot of my personal pain points in the way I was brought up. So I was a very conscious parent and I saw a lot of issues with other parents in the community, and it just frustrated me. But anyway, so I got certified in that, and then I have been parenting coaches and families. And then I think over the pandemic, like a little bit before the pandemic, my work just organically grew into women empowerment. Like women were approaching
Yeah.
me for parenting problems, and I was like, wait a minute, like it's something else,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's so deeply connected, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so and then I guess it's just organically grew like that, and I started developing more. I read, like the more programs I'm able to develop, it's just a natural talent I have. I can pick up a book, a self-development book, and I can turn it into a program.
Yeah.
And I'm able to, and I it's a talent I have. I'm able to work with women who have perfectionism issues and like a lot of things.
Yeah.
And but definitely the pain points are something that I'm always working on myself, because like you rightly said, that is where I'm going to feel the more the depth of the pain will come from that. So
So Monica, tell me, like, okay, so how long have you been doing this again?
total since 2018.
So is that 3 years? 4 years.
4 years.
4 years. 4 years.
4 years.
So
Yes.
what are some of the perks of being a coach that you have found? What's some of the things that you love about being a coach?
It is not work. It is not work.
Telling you.
And I get to do my favorite things, which is reading books on self development. I'm a junkie. Not really, I used to be a junkie, and now I became very selective. And
Sure.
now I mean, obviously you become selective, and I love that what you said, that my own growth is my client's growth. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win. I do not feel, it doesn't feel like work to me at all. I love my clients. I tell them that I love them. I there is no rules. I send them a message sometimes in the night, and there's no rule. I love that there are no such boundaries. I do have boundaries issues sometimes. That's
Of
a different
course.
thing.
But
That's
you
a
get to
different.
be in the moment. I mean,
Yeah.
that's another thing. You get to kind of be in the moment and you get to express yourself authentically without fear of, the board coming down on you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but it's very freeing also for me to, especially right now all my clients are my own community. And it's very interesting how when I am openly talking about my own wounds, how the shame that they have been living with
Yeah.
their whole life, how that melts, and I open gateways like floodgates for them. There is no expert in this world
Yeah.
who can say you can talk to me, as against someone who herself has gone through exact same
Abs-
situation, and
absolutely.
she's willing to talk about it because
Yeah.
she's healing. And I never say I'm healed, I never say I'm healed.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever going to be healed.
Yeah. Same here.
uh
Yeah.
yeah, well, it's just a word, right? Like I,
Yeah.
like you said, every day you do shadow work,
Yeah.
you work, and I think that is, this work is also my way to heal.
Yeah. I agree 100%, Monica. It feels, it's number one, I love that your community, because, so it's interesting. I'm American, and Americans are supposed to be more open, around
Yes.
this stuff because, we have Sedona, Arizona. We got whole cities that are, that are assigned to woo woo, New Mexico, Taos, that's all like, energy centers, right?
Woodstock, yeah.
Woodstock. For sure, man. Mount Shasta, Hawaii, all those places, okay? And yet, um, people don't feel so free to talk about their shadows out loud. Of course, there are a lot of people who do, and we do, and you see us, but we're talking for all those people who cannot talk, who
Yeah,
cannot voice it, who have shame around it. I get so many private messages that because people are afraid to post. And I understand, okay? I
yeah,
understand. You don't want to put yourself out there.
no.
But the power, another power of being a spiritual life coach is that you give voice to those people who are ashamed of who they are or what they've gone through. They've
Yeah,
gone through pain, they've gone through some things. And I totally understand not wanting to do that, but it's an honor to be able to do that?
yes, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, excellent. So,
Mhm.
look, Monica, I thank you for joining me. I think I need to wrap this up because, believe it or not, I'm actually going out to dinner tonight. What? Me? And I was looking at the news, and France is getting ready to release the mask mandate,
Oh, okay.
and they're getting ready to stop the COVID pass. So
Okay.
you cannot eat in a restaurant here without showing your pass.
The
Okay.
the vaccination record, you mean?
Yeah, the vaccination. Yeah, they have a record and a pass, and it's all online, right? So you have to have your thing all up to date. And so it's a really big deal because I have a lot of friends who have not been going out to dinner
Oh,
because they can't. They're like, I'm not getting vaccinated.
there are people who are not vaccinated over there?
Oh, yeah, lots of people. Yeah. All over the world, there are people who are not vaccinated, and
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
people don't want to be vaccinated. They don't want it. Look, I didn't want it. And if I weren't traveling, I wouldn't have gotten vaccinated because I don't do vaccines unless it's for like polio or mumps or
Yeah,
measles, whatever. That's a
yeah.
different type of thing, but I wouldn't have gotten a vaccine for this. Like, I don't do the flu vaccination.
No,
And I
I
had
don't either.
COVID. And I had COVID before, and I survived it without a vaccination. Without a vaccine, I didn't feel like I needed a vaccine. That's all.
Hmm.
Anyway, so it's a new thing that's happening here, and so it
Nice.
just feels good. And spring is here, and it just feels
Yes. It's
yeah,
getting nice here too, so it's
yeah.
exciting. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Monica, I can't wait to hear your podcast. You have such a beautiful voice, and I'm just waiting for you to
Okay.
be like, this is Monica, and I'm broadcasting from my living room, and we are going to do some yoga right now, some gentle yoga.
I love that.
And
I
it's
love
going to be
that.
yoga for your ears. This is Monica's yoga for your ears.
Yes, I need to hop on that horse really quick. Yeah, it's on
You
my
do.
list. It's on my
You
list.
do. You have a beautiful, beautiful voice.
Thank
Beautiful.
you. Thank
All right,
you.
sweetheart. Thanks for joining me. I'll
Yeah.
see I'll see you Sunday.
Yes, I'll see you Sunday.
All right,
Have a
sweetheart.
lovely dinner. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.